Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Jim Davies. I'm a professor of cognitive science at Carleton University. And this video is intended to teach you strategies for memorizing a talk. So sometimes you need to give a speech or you need to give a talk and you can't read from notes or you cannot read verbatim from the talk that you have printed out in front of you. You need to just stand up there and give a talk, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for 15 minutes, sometimes for an hour. How do people memorize an entire talk? One way to do it is by using memory palaces. Now, memory palaces were made popular by the Sherlock Holmes television show, and that has some basis in reality and some not. I'm going to talk to you about the way that you can use them in a way that is scientifically validated and has been used for thousands of years to memorize not just talks, but long lists of things. So today, I'm going to give a little tutorial to someone who's going to be giving a talk very soon after this video is made, Molly Zhang. She is a Carleton University student who's giving a TEDx Carleton U talk. And by the time you're watching this video, her video will probably be online, so please check it out. It's a good talk. And we're just going to walk through her talk and I'm going to show her how she can memorize it. And you're not memorizing Molly's talk, of course, although maybe it would behoove you to do so. You might have your own thing to memorize, but by example is the best way to teach how to do this. So I'm just going to walk Molly through it and you will be able to adapt the strategies that we are using in this video to your own talk or whatever you need to memorize when you have to memorize a long series of things in order. So welcome, Molly.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me. And thanks for doing this.
You're welcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm opening up an app that is a painting app. Can you see that, Molly?
Yep.
Okay. Now, so Molly has a talk here and it's about addiction and labels and all other kinds of stuff that people should know about. And so the first thing that you want to do, let's just say that like Molly, you have your talk written out, okay? It doesn't need to be final draft, but the closer to a final draft it is before you make your memory palace, the better. So Molly, how well do you know your talk right now?
Not very well. I've read over it a few times and I wrote it, so I know it, but like not very well.
And how long, like when you just read it aloud, how long is it?
Around 15, 16 minutes, give or take.
Okay. So what you want to do is you have your talk and you have it. And then what you need to do is break it up into parts whereby if you're reminded of those parts, you'll be able to reconstruct that part of the text. So I'm just going to read. Molly, you have your talk in front of you?
Yes.
Why don't you read me the first couple sentences?
I've always hated labels, as I'm sure many of you do. Before I had contacts, I wore glasses every day, and I remember when I was younger, my friends used to jokingly call me Four Eyes. Along with that, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, and so being Asian was a big part of my label. The two of those things together became a large part of my identity to others, and I often felt like I was a stereotype rather than my own person.
Okay, good. Let's stop there. So let's just think about that part of your talk, okay? You're talking about being called Four Eyes, glasses, being Asian. Can you think of an image that you can picture in your mind that would help you remember to say that?
Probably glasses. I feel like it's the easiest thing that comes to mind, thinking about glasses.
Right, and then so you talk about glasses and then you talk about being labeled as Asian, right? So what you could do is you could have two separate images, one for glasses and one for Asianness, okay? In order. That would take up two spots in your memory palace. Or you might combine them into, since you're talking about stereotypes, what I would probably do is imagine like a very stereotypical Asian, maybe like a caricature, wearing huge glasses, okay? So how do you think works best for you? What image or images do you think would help you best remember that part?
Probably what you said, probably thinking about that stereotypical Asian that people tend to imagine.
Yes. Okay. So we're using Asian stereotypes to remember or talk about stereotypes, which may be unfortunate, but it's going to help us remember, because you're going to find, Molly and the audience, that the more kind of vivid and emotional and memorable the images, the easier this is all going to be. So we have this image, right? And we want to put it into the palace. Now, what is a palace? A memory palace is a place that you can remember really, really well, that you can do a virtual walkthrough in your imagination in the same order. So usually what people do is they pick their childhood home. It's a place they know really, really well. And then what you do is you choose a path through that home that you're going to take every single time. It's called a canonical path, right? So for me, the rule I use, and what I'm going to use with Molly, is that the path is you pick a starting spot and you look at the center of the room, and then you go around from left to right, looking at all the significant places in the room. And then you follow the left wall into the next room, and you keep doing that throughout the whole house. Now, I've done this with my childhood home, but I've also done it with about 20 other places. So I have about 20 memory palaces in my head that I use for memorizing albums, remembering my interests, remembering the months of the year and whose birthdays are where. Okay, we're just going to do this for a talk, but people can have many, many multiple memory palaces. And this is how people do feats of memory and memory competitions, like memorizing like 3 decks of cards and that kind of thing. So Molly, why don't you tell me about, where do you want to start in your memory palace? Where's a natural starting point for you?
Probably at the front door.
The front door? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a front door at the bottom of this image. Okay, so this is a top-down view. This rectangle here represents a door. Okay, and so you walk in, and what's the first thing you see when you enter the door?
It's a hallway.
It's a hallway going back, let's say it goes to here or something like that. Actually, okay. So is there anything of significance in the hallway?
Yes, to the immediate right, there's a doorway into another room, but then there is on the wall next to that doorway, this big mirror, and it's like a round mirror, and off it comes other small round mirrors. It's like a decorative thing.
So if the door is like here, is the mirror to the right or left of it?
To the left.
Okay, so we're going to put a door here to the next room, and then we're going to put a mirror here.
Sorry, on the other side.
It's on the right.
Which way are you looking at this?
Imagine that you're standing here looking at the door.
It's on my left.
Okay. So hold on. We got a mirror here, right?
I think I might be looking at your screen the opposite way that you are looking at your screen.
So this door is actually on the wrong side for you.
Yes.
Oh no! All right, this is going to make this very hard. All right, I'm just going to try to switch. Okay, so the doorway to the next room is here, and then you said so the mirror is here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to try to reverse your left and right. So you just keep talking the way you normally do. Okay, and is there anything here in the hallway?
Not
a rug or anything like that.
Oh, there is a rug.
Okay, is it like a long rug or a circular rug? What is it?
Long rug.
Okay, like that, let's say. Okay. So using my canonical walkthrough rooms, the first thing you do is you look at the center of the room. In this case, the room is a hallway. So what we're going to do is we're going to picture your stereotypical Asian person here wearing a really big set of glasses, maybe sitting on the floor, okay? So picture very vividly, Molly. You walk into your house, and the first thing you see is this cartoon Asian person wearing big glasses, all right? Now, what you should be able to do when you look at that is remember, oh yeah, I need to talk about wearing glasses as a kid, being called Four Eyes, and then like another label is, being Asian or something. And you'll be able to do those first several sentences. You see how that works? Okay. So the next thing in this room is the mirror, okay? So what's the next part of your talk that you need to remember?
Even though many of the stereotypes could be considered good traits, growing up with it did quite a number on me. As you can see, I don't really wear glasses much anymore. I hate them now, and to this day, I still sometimes struggle to find the difference between who I am and who others expect me to be based on these stereotypes.
Okay, good. Now here's a tricky part, because this part of the talk is about it's about your identity, and it's about how labels affect how you think about yourself, which is difficult because it's not a concrete thing. It's not like you're talking about bricks and chocolates. You're talking about identity and things that are abstract, right? So what you want to do in these situations is find a physical or a visible thing you can imagine that represents identity for you, right? Now here's one thing that I'm thinking of is that you're not wearing glasses anymore, but your vision is your vision perfect, or do you wear contacts?
I wear contacts.
Okay, so here's what I would do, and I'm gonna make you do these later. I'm just gonna help you through these now because just to get you used to it. You said it's a mirror with lots of little mirrors around it or something, right?
Yeah.
Well, mirrors are a little bit like contact lenses. So what you could do is in this spot, you can imagine the mirror made of contact lenses. Can you picture that?
Yes, I like that.
So instead of a mirror, it's a whole bunch of contact lenses that barely reflect and they distort and everything else. And do you have like an image that reminds you of how labels affect your identity? Is there anything that symbolizes that in your life?
I don't know.
How about this? How about you see yourself in the mirror in your memory palace. When you look into this mirror of contact lenses, you see yourself with a label on it.
Okay, that works.
It says whatever, 4 eyes or Asian or whatever you want, right? And then maybe that would remind you that you're supposed to be talking about how a label affects your sense of who you are. Do you think that would work?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
I like that.
So we're gonna have contact lenses. I'm just sketching here. Now what I do is when I am, and then we've got like a label. It's hard to draw this with a trackpad. But what you're gonna do eventually, Molly, is you're gonna write down you're gonna write down the location in your house, the image that's there, and then what it represents. Okay, and then maybe the part of the talk that's there. And then you can practice that and you can go through and you can remember, you can like think about, okay, what's the next part of the house? What is in that location? And what part of the talk does that refer to? This is easier than it seems, right? So close your eyes right now, Molly. You walk into the house, what's the first thing you see?
The hallway.
What's in the hallway?
The rug, the mirror, and then the door, and then the stairs as well. On the rug is a stereotypical Asian cartoon caricature.
Okay, and what would you say in your talk at this point? Roughly.
Okay, well, roughly it's the start of my talk. So it would be me talking about how I don't like labels and how I've grown up with labels surrounding wearing glasses and being Asian. Good.
Now you turn to the left and you see what?
The doorway and then the mirror.
Okay, tell me about the mirror.
And the mirror is made of contact lenses. And in the mirror, I'm looking at myself with a label on it, which would correspond to the talk because I'm talking about how these labels created like an uncertainty of who I was as a person.
Great. Okay. So you see, you can open your eyes. So you can see, and the audience can see that even now you've already got part of your talk, the structure of it memorized. Now you don't have the actual words memorized, but that's less important. When you are up there giving a talk in front of 100 people and you have to get through the whole thing, it is way more important to remember the topic than the exact wording. Because if you get lost or something, you can just, I could ask you, Molly, right now, talk to me about how labels affect your identity. And you could come out with coherent sentences that talk about it. And the audience might not even know the difference, whether it was planned or like those exact words were planned or you're just saying it off the cuff. It might not matter. But you can see how, even without like rehearsing, you've already got these two images. And then you can write down the labels. And then you can in your memory because they're easy to remember, and the basic topics that are associated with them. Okay, so let's say we go through this doorway. How would you describe this next area?
It's like a den. So there's a couch and a TV.
Square shape?
Rectangular, but yeah, square shaped.
All right, let's just say it's roughly square. Okay, and you say there's a couch. Where's the couch? Here?
The couch is, yes. And that's very nice and long.
Nice couch. Let's see what I can do this with my finger. Okay, there's a couch, and you say there's a TV. Where's the TV?
The TV is on the opposite side, kind of like where the mirror is, but on the opposite side of the wall.
Here? Yeah.
It's like frozen. Yeah.
Like there? Okay. So the TV is there, right? So we have a couch and a TV. Okay, so what is the next? Now let's read the next part of your talk. Read me the next couple sentences.
Even the labels that were put on me were, for the most part, good traits. They still did damage, and I know that many others probably have similar experiences with labels and stereotypes that I did. If you have had these experiences, I want you to think back on them and ask yourself how it made you feel. To have someone define you by one or two traits rather than seeing you as your whole entire person.
Okay, stop. Okay, so this is good. So you're talking about, so this is, I'm gonna help you one more time. This is about how labels make you feel bad. So what I would do in this situation is I would picture a person lying on the couch with a whole bunch of paper labels, paper cutting them. So they're like swirling around them like a big hurricane and cutting their skin, and they're bleeding on the couch, and it's like extremely painful, and they're screaming in pain. Now that's really vivid and gory and horrific and fantastical, like it's magical, but that's good because this is the kind of thing that's gonna stick in your mind more than like, there's a yellow pillow on the couch. Like, you know, it's better that way. So does that work for you, Molly?
Yes. Yeah,
so now we're developing like a common symbol for this talk. Okay, the talk is partially about labels. We'll get to addiction later, but now it's about labels. And we're going to start representing labels in general as paper labels that you wear, like name tags that say like, hello, my name is Molly, right?
Yeah.
So here we can have that they're doing damage. And, you know, you say here, I want you to think back and ask yourself how it made you feel. What I would do is I would have this person yelling, I feel bad. So when you walk into this room virtually, you see this person on the couch, labels are cutting them, and they say very distinctly, I feel bad. Okay, so do you think this would be enough to remind you?
Yeah.
Of like, labels can hurt. Now, what it doesn't have is labels were for the most part good traits. Okay, so here's what you might do. As you're going through this memory palace, you might refine it. You might find yourself forgetting to say, for the most part, they're good traits. And if that were the case, you might later, if the whole rest of the memory palace is already established, you might try to find something on this wall. Is there anything on this wall?
There's a window.
Aha, there's a window. So let's just say that you are having a hard time remembering the good traits part. You might add something in the memory palace there. You look out the window, and what do you see outside? Something that represents good traits. You see how that works?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, for now, let's just assume that you'll remember that part. We won't worry about the window. Okay, so the next part of the room is the television. And what is the next part of your talk that you're going to need to remember?
So the next few sentences is, with that in mind, imagine if the traits that were projected onto you were negative traits that associated you with being dirty or disgusting or a criminal or someone whose entire life is a bad decision. This is what many individuals experiencing addiction face. Okay, so what do you think is the right size chunk of that to make an image for? Honestly, I'm thinking about the TV, and I'm just thinking about like. Oh, don't worry about the TV yet. Which part of the talk is the next chunk that you would want to make an image for? Probably all the negative traits surrounding those experiencing addiction. Okay, so how would you when the memory palace, when you turn and look at the television, what can you put in your imagination that would help you remember that? Probably like, I'm thinking mostly in terms of like being a criminal, like a jail cell or something like that.
Okay, good. How would you imagine a jail cell imagery associated with the television?
It's, I don't know, it's, I'm watching like a show and they're in jail. It's the easiest thing I can think
That's
of.
totally fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
So you turn, you look at the television, and on TV is a jail cell. Okay. Now, if you find that's not vivid enough, you can make it better in the future, right? If you find like, oh, I can never remember the damn TV, but I in my memory palaces, I often imagine something on screen at a television. But another thing is you might imagine the TV itself in a jail cell, right? Or you might imagine an addict sitting on the TV shooting up, right? Like there are all these possibilities. But for now, let's go with your idea, which is that you imagine the person or you imagine a jail cell on screen as a part of the television program, right? Okay. So, and that will remind you that negative traits of being disgusting or criminal or who's made bad life decisions, that's what people experiencing addiction face. Do you think that's going to be sufficient?
Yeah, I think so. Yes. Yeah,
right.
Let's go with yes for now.
Well, if it's not, then you got it. You can elaborate on the memory palace, right? Like you could put somebody, you could imagine on the TV somebody dirty and disgusting in the jail cell. And that would remind you, oh yeah, I need to say about how like negative traits of being dirty, disgusting, or criminal, okay? And even though it's more complicated to imagine a dirty person in a cell on TV, it's actually easier to remember. Sometimes in imagination, sometimes more complicated things are easier to remember than simpler things. If like it's an intriguing kind of thing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So is there another way out of this room?
Yes. Straight ahead, there is another door.
Okay, right here. Is it a door or a doorway?
It's a door. It's like a sliding door. Two doors that slide out and in. So it's a door.
It's sort of a double door. We'll just put it like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is this here? What's here?
It's a dining room.
And what's in the middle of it?
A table, a large dining room table. There's 6 chairs. It seats 6.
Okay. All right. So what is the next part of your talk?
Well, the next part of the talk is, hi everyone, I'm Molly Zhang, and today I'm here to talk to you about the importance of changing our perspective on addiction. Going back to labels, ask yourself what you've been taught to think when you think about a drug addict or a junkie or a crackhead. Unfortunately, a lot of people have a negative view associated with those terms, and this doesn't just harm individuals who experience addiction, but almost everyone who uses substances, as well as other groups of people who also may or may not use substances.
Okay, so now our job is to try to think of images that will help you remember this passage. So what's the first thing that you want to remember about this passage in terms of text?
Okay, well, so the first sentence I think isn't super hard to remember because it's an introduction, essentially.
Yeah, but you have to remember to do it now.
Okay.
Right. So I think you should have something in the memory palace to remind you to say, hi, I'm Molly.
Okay, then yes, the introduction of myself and then like my overall topic.
Okay. So how would you remember to introduce yourself in terms of an image?
Probably like someone else is standing there and I have to like walk in the room and shake their hand or something like that.
That's great. I had a different image. I imagined you walking in and seeing yourself sitting on the dining room table waving. But this is the point of it. Like you should pick things that are meaningful to you, not to me. So we might have okay, I'm looking at this. I haven't like tried to memorize this, but I already know there's an Asian here sitting wearing, you can see my cursor, right, Molly?
Yeah.
There's an Asian, stereotypical Asian wearing glasses. This is made of contact lenses and you've got a label on. Here's a person getting cut up by labels and saying, I feel bad. On TV is a jail cell with a dirty criminal in it. And here is a person sticking out the hand to shake with you. And I'm sure you remember that too, right?
Yeah.
This is the power. I'm just going to talk a little psychology here. This is why memory palaces work, because we are very good at remembering spaces and we're very good at remembering where things are, okay? So if you, like sometimes my wife will say, oh, do you know where my phone is? And even though I didn't like try to memorize where her phone is, I just remember seeing it next to the coffee maker in the kitchen. And I say, it's up in the kitchen by the coffee maker, because we are really good at remembering what is where, okay? And remembering long lists of things is hard, but remembering how to walk through a building is easy, and remembering what is where is easy. So the whole point of mnemonic devices and mnemonics is to remember something that is hard to remember by associating it with something that is easy to remember, and walking around a place you know and seeing what you remember being in what place is one of the easiest things there is to remember. And that's why this whole process works, okay? So let's just say I'm gonna try to draw a person from top view. I'm a better artist than this if I had a pen or whatever. And I'll say they're sitting like with their legs and they're sticking out their hand to shake, okay? All right, and you shake, so that's like, hi, I'm Molly, right? And then you wanna say, what's the next part of this text that you wanna remember?
Probably all the common terms for those who are experiencing an addiction. So drug addict, junkie, crackhead, those types of terms that I talk about.
Okay, and is there anything on this wall?
There is a window.
Okay, what's outside the window? When you look out the window, what do you see in reality?
Bushes, like trees.
Okay, so let's just say there's plantness over here. Okay, so if you were standing here looking out the window at the bushes, how can you alter the image of the plants and the bushes to help you remember drug addicts, junkies, and crackheads?
I don't know, maybe like things associated with using substances, like a needle or something, or like a bottle of alcohol.
So let's just say a hypodermic needle, right? How do you picture the hypodermic needle associated with those bushes?
Maybe there's one in the bush, like someone had walked past and like tossed it, like thrown it away in the bush.
Yeah, that's good. If you can picture that clearly, that would work, okay? Other ideas, it might be a gigantic one. Sometimes it helps to make it like weird. Like I mentioned, a huge hypodermic needle stuck in the ground next to the bushes. Or maybe one of the bushes has hypodermic needles hanging like Christmas ornaments, okay? And are there like a definite number of bushes, or is it just sort of a big hedge?
Like a big hedge.
Okay, so that's unfortunate. If it were if it was like 3 distinct, you could have 3 separate memory palace locations, you see? Okay, but we just have that, so let's just leave it at that. Do you think that the hypodermic needle is enough to remind you to say, going back to labels, ask yourself what you've been taught to think when you think about a drug addict, junkie, or crackhead?
Yes. Yeah, I want to say that would be good.
A little hypodermic needle. Good. Okay. Great. All right. What's the next part you want to remember?
Well, essentially this piece on how it harms both people who experience addiction and other people as well.
Okay. What is on this wall, or what is over here?
A big doorway.
It's a doorway?
Yes, no door.
That's the eraser. Nope. Okay. I don't know this drawing program super well. So let's just fudge it, and we'll just put this for a doorway. Okay. And what do you see in here?
That leads into the kitchen.
And what's in the middle of the room? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anything on this wall?
There is a big painting.
Oh, of what?
It's like trying to figure out how to describe it. Kind of like a cave, like it's like a rock formation, but like it's like orange and yellow tones. I'm trying to
Is it
think
is it
about
like a mountain, or is it more like an interior?
more like an interior.
Okay, great. Can you imagine an object in that painting as though like there were an object like as part of the world of the painting? Like an apple. Could you put an apple in there? And
Yeah.
okay. So here we have a lot of people have a negative view associated with those terms. This doesn't just harm individuals who experience addiction. So you want to talk about labels harming addicts and other groups of people, right?
Yeah.
So what image can you think of that would remind you of communicating the harm that labels do to?
Maybe like a weapon or something, like something that would like harm everyone.
Like what? Make it concrete.
Sorry, what was that?
Make it concrete.
Oh no, let's go with like a big knife.
A big knife, perfect.
A big knife.
Who is it? Is it hurting someone in the image? Or does it not need to?
I don't think it needs to.
Okay, so if knife reminds you of harm all by itself, picturing a big knife in that painting, or even like a real knife stuck in the painting, right?
Oh, I do like that.
A knife of some kind is going to be your image there. Just gonna draw one. Okay, Molly. Now, no pressure, but close your eyes.
Okay.
Okay. You go into your memory palace, and what's the first location?
So I go through the front door, and there is the hallway and the rug, and there's someone sitting on the rug, and it's like a cartoon-ish stereotypical Asian person.
Mm-hmm. And at what part of the talk does that remind you to say?
So that's my first part of the talk, talking about how I don't like labels, and I've always been labeled as someone with glasses, so 4 eyes, and I've always also been labeled in terms of like being Asian as well.
Great. Okay, now you're going to turn to the left. What's the next location?
There's a doorway, and then next to the doorway, there's a mirror, and this mirror is made out of contact lenses. And then in terms of that talk, it's where I talk about how all of these labels kind of distorted how I see myself, and made me uncertain in that, and how I don't wear glasses anymore because of that, and how I hate wearing glasses. And that part of my talk where I talk about kind of how these labels affected me.
Okay, and what's the next location in the house?
You go through the door on the left, and there's the den. In the den, there's a couch, and on the couch, there's someone lying there in a paper label whirlwind. They're being cut up, which corresponds to me talking about how labels, no matter what they are, whether they're good or bad, they can still always be harmful to different people.
Good. And what's the next location?
On the opposite side of the couch, there is a TV. In that TV, there is someone who is dirty and disgusting, and he's in a jail cell, which leads me to talking about how people who experience addiction are often faced with labels that associate them with being dirty or disgusting or criminals.
Okay, good. What's the next entry location in your memory palace?
Then it's into the dining room.
Mm-hmm.
So in the dining room, sitting there is a person who is reaching their hand out for me to shake. So I need to introduce myself at this point and introduce what my talk is.
Excellent. Okay, and what's the next location?
And then the next location is the windows with the hedges outside, and the hedges, there is a large needle there. And so this is me talking about the different labels that are often given to those who experience addiction, such as addict, junkie, druggie, crackhead, those types of labels.
Very good. And the next location?
And then opposite to the window is the painting. And in the painting, there is a big knife stuck through it. And this corresponds to the part of the talk where I talk about how all of these labels are harmful to those who experience addiction and almost everyone else as well.
Very good. Open your eyes. All right. Now, I put you through that, Molly. Sorry for putting you on the spot. But I wanted to show everybody how even the first creation of creating the memory palace, without even trying to put effort into memorizing it, you already got almost the first page of your talk, basically the major chunks you remember. Okay. So we're gonna stop making your memory palace now. I'm just gonna talk a little bit more abstractly about it. What you're gonna do, and what the listeners can do, is you make a map, like a floor plan of a space you know, and then you have a canonical walk through it. I like going to a room, middle, and then left to right. I actually messed up a little bit over here. I should have done the stairway. That should have been a location. You can add something there if you want, because you're supposed to, the middle of the room, then all the way around left to right, and then you follow the left wall through whatever door, hallway, whatever, into the next room. Center of the room, you could add something in the center of the living room if there's a table, coffee table there or something, right? Left to right, you went from couch to TV, follow the left wall into this room, the center, left to right. So you make the whole floor plan of your house. You specify what your locations are going to be, and they should be distinct, right? Like left of the couch and right side of the couch might not be distinct enough, but the couch is certainly distinct enough, right? And then you break up your talk into chunks, and then you associate images with those chunks, and you place those images one by one into all the locations in order. And you associate those images with those locations, which is what we've been doing, okay? So stereotypical Asian wearing glasses, have her sitting on the rug, right? Contact lenses and labels, replace the mirror with contact lenses. And then once all that's done, then you memorize the images in the memory palace. And that's not too hard. As we've seen, Molly's got them almost memorized already, okay? Last year at the TEDx talk, there was a kid who was sweating, could not remember his talk, like just practicing. And how was he practicing? He was trying to go over it again and again and screwing up. And I saw him in distress. I said, get over here. This was like an hour before the talk. And I pulled out a piece of paper and I did this for him, and he got through it. Like this was an hour before his talk. All right, this helped him, okay? But Molly has some time, and hopefully listeners do too, to actually practice the memory palace, so it's really good. The great thing about a memory palace is that you don't need anything to practice it. While you're waiting, while you're sitting on the bus, while you are trying to go to sleep, while you are in line waiting for something, okay? Put away your phone and just sit there and walk through your memory palace. What's in that image? What's in that area? What's in that area? What's in that area? And what are they associated with? When I gave my TEDx talk last year, I did this, and I could easily rattle off the entire talk at a moment's notice. And while I was giving the talk on stage, I was walking through the memory palace, making sure that I hit every point. Okay. So, I can't ask questions of a YouTube audience, but Molly, do you have any questions or comments or skepticism, anything that we could address on behalf of our listeners?
I'm trying to think. So, okay, so you said at the beginning of all of this that you had many memory palaces of different locations. Mm-hmm. Are all of those different locations connected to each other, or are they all like distinct for you?
Very good question. So what I have, this is where I'm going to sound like a total freak. I actually have a memory palace of memory palaces. So my childhood home, like basically what we've been doing for you, is my memory palace of memory palaces. So the first I start in my bed of my childhood home. So I'm in my bed and I turn to my left. The first thing I see is my old record player. And the first thing on the memory palace is rotating around on the turntable, okay? And that is what is that? That is my first home. Okay, I've lived in several homes. So the first like 4 or 5 are the homes that I've lived in. Okay. So what I want to do is if I want to review all my memory palaces, I can walk through this memory palace and remember what they all are. But they're not really connected. I mean, one home and then the next home, there's not like a connection between them, except that I've made a memory palace. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And the follow-up question to that is, when you have all these memory palaces, every time you need to remember something else, do you ever replace things in your memory palace? Like if you remember the talk that you don't have to give anymore because it's already happened, would you ever go back into that memory palace that you've made for that talk and replace it with something else? Or would that just be like very difficult to do?
No, that's easy to do. And in fact, that's how the memory experts do it. So I read about, there's a great book about memory palaces. If those of you really interested, it's called Moonwalking with Einstein, which is a description of one of the images that the memory master uses. It tells the story of somebody using memory palaces to memorize digits of pi. And they'd memorized it out to a certain point. And then somebody beat the record for memorizing digits of pi by such a large margin that the person just gave up. And he said he had to spend a lot of time going through the memory palace, removing everything. Here's the problem though, is that sometimes you'll get interference with old objects you put in the memory palace, right? So if you were to, Molly, if you were to like go shopping and put things in a memory palace that are on your shopping list, and you replace the first location with a big piece of celery, okay, then when you try to remember your talk, you might get the celery interference, okay? So what I would do is try to use up all, like you can make a list of all the places you know so well they could be memory palaces, right? And use those up before you start replacing things.
That makes sense. I don't think I have any questions.
Okay.
After that though.
So making your images, okay? So as you've seen as me working with Molly, sometimes she will say something, I would make it more vivid, okay? And you know, I'm not gonna talk about it for the sake of propriety, but sometimes very violent or very sexual images are more memorable, okay? Now this is a memory palace, you don't have to communicate to anybody. So what you have in your own imagination is your business, but I'm just saying that sometimes something very shocking, and that's sometimes sexual or violent, is easier to remember than something a little bit more tame and something that could go in a PG movie, okay? So I think that about wraps it up. Thanks everybody for listening. And if you're giving a talk, or actually, no, let me just say one more thing. This is not just for talks, okay? So my memory palaces are for all kinds of stuff. One of my memory palaces is intentionally empty. It's my like working memory palace. And that is for things I need to remember, but I can't write it down right now. So I ride my bike to work a lot, and I don't want to always stop, especially when it's really cold. I don't want to always stop, pull out a piece of paper and write down ideas. Let's say I'm riding my bike and I have to call the dentist. I have to make an appointment at the dentist. I forgot to do that. I'm on my bike. I'm on my way to work. How am I going to remember to call the dentist when I finally get to work? Well, what I do is I have this memory palace for like short-term things. And in the first location, I will put my dentist doing something, okay? On the phone, my dentist on the phone, perfect. So then, and then on the way, sometimes I'll have up to 6 things I'll think of on my bike ride. And I want to remember all of them. What's the second thing I need to remember, right? Let's say I need to remember to wash the dog. In the second location, I'll put my dog in covered with soap suds, okay? Then when I get to work, I write down all the things in my memory palace, and then I can clear those things out, right? So you can use memory palaces for remembering temporary things. I've memorized all the lyrics to an album using one memory palace. So I can just sing an entire album, which is handy sometimes when you've got nothing to do. One time I was driving and my wife fell asleep. So I couldn't play music. I couldn't like do much. And she slept for an hour. I just played that album in my head. I just imagined all the music and I used my memory palace to do it. And I wasn't so bored when I was driving. As I said, I remember birthdays with memory palaces. So you can use it for all kinds of things, but it's particularly good when you need to memorize a whole bunch of things in some kind of order, okay? So unless you have anything else to say, Molly?
I think I'm okay, other than thanks again for
Thank you everybody for
doing
listening.
this.
And Molly, good luck with your talk. Everybody should probably be up by the time you're watching it. Watch Molly's talk. It's going to be awesome. And everybody else, good luck with your own talk or whatever you need to remember. Bye-bye.